Well, good Monday morning. Welcome back. This is day 19 of our journey through Job, and this is it. This is the moment that we've been waiting for. This is the moment that God Himself shows up in chapters 38 and 39. The Lord speaks. And as it begins, I have that sense that Elf did in the movie when he says, "It's Him, it's God, I know Him." And I'm so excited because we've seen the turmoil of Job's heart. We've seen the heartache and the hardship that he has gone through. And I am extremely excited to see God show up Himself to bring the peace and reassurance and the answers that we know that He has. And so we know that Job was looking for an answer. But in true God form, God doesn't give Job an answer. He goes one step further. He takes away Job's question. And often when we turn to Him, He does the same for us. When we look at Him, when we ask Him all His questions, He gives us this peace that surpasses all understanding. And when you've been in a moment where you feel like everything has gone wrong, when you feel like things are coming at you from every which way and you don't know where else to turn and you honestly don't know if you can continue on, that's when God does the best work, because He knows then that we have resigned ourselves, that we have determined, that we have decided, that we have no other choice. And He wants us to choose Him first. He wants us to go to Him first. And yet we don't tend to do that. And so in these moments, He knows, now I have your undivided attention. Let me show you a few things. Let me remind you about who I am. Let me show you what I am capable of. Let me show you the entire story as much as your mind can comprehend and you can absorb, because I want to bring you peace. I want to bring you reassurance. And when I do, and when you do feel it, then we can start to do the work that only I can do. You've been trying to do it all on your own, my daughter. You've been trying to do it all on your own, my son. And I didn't create you for that. I created you for a relationship with me, that you could depend on me, you could lean to me, you could look to me. And this is what I'm trying to show you. And this is what God is trying to show Job in chapter 38 and 39. And so it starts like this. It says in chapter 38, verse 1, "Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind." Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. And we remember in the chapter before that we felt like this wind pickup and we're like, ooh, what's that? Something's happening. And this is it. This is what's happening. God shows up in the whirlwind. And why? The Hebrew term for whirlwind refers to a tempest, which is a sign of God's glory and His indignation against sin, meaning He's coming in to set the record straight. In chapter 38, He shows up in the whirlwind because He's like, hold up a second. There has been some false reports about me. And now that I have your attention, now that you've looked to me, now that you've asked me the question, let me answer you, because He is faithful to answer us when we pray. He is faithful to answer us when we look to Him. He is faithful to do the work that only He can do when we give Him space to, when we're silent, when we hold our ground. That's where He shows up. Hey, hang on for me a second. Be confident in the fact that I always show up for you. I will never leave you or forsake you. And if you've forgotten that in the pain, I understand, and that's okay. But baby, I need you to focus here. I need you to look to me so that you don't have to go through that pain and suffering, because that's not from me. That is not my intention for you. And so I need you to look to me. So in chapter 38, God shows up in a whirlwind. And I love this quote by Frederick Buechner. And it describes all of this for me perfectly. It says, "This is the world. Beautiful and terrible things will happen. Don't be afraid. I am with you." God then takes Job back to the very beginning of creation, back to the garden, where the question was first asked in what only can be described here as an elaborate National Geographic tour of the wonders and intricacies of creation, right? And it seems a little like unsettling, like, wait a second, God, just answer my question. He's like, let me show you a few things. And then the scene changes over. And then He's showing him creation itself. He's showing him the nature and the wonders of the world and how it seems chaotic, but He is in control control of everything. And then he takes him to the very beginning to be reassured. Hey, in the beginning, this seemed to all fall off the tracks, but I had a plan from the very beginning. From Eve herself, when she doubted, I let her know that she would crush the head of the serpent, that I have already overcome for her, that I have a plan and I'm working it out. And I like to think of this as God could have made it happen like this. But he didn't, because he wanted to redeem and restore everything from the very beginning, because he loved Eve and Adam themselves, and everything from the future to this all playing out. He didn't want to waste anything. He didn't want to leave behind anyone. He loves us all so much that when he entered in that moment, he saw every single one of our faces, and he entered in and said, I'm going to redeem all of these because I created all of these in me, in my creation, in my time. These all exist, and I'm not going to let them go to waste. I'm going to redeem. I'm not going to start over and scrap it all. I'm going to reach all the way back in time, and I'm going to reach all the way back forward into the future, and I'm going to take all of this and I'm going to redeem you all. Every single one of you. I've already done it. That's God's time. But in our time, in this little short period here that we live in, that we think feels so long, but we realize as you get older that it's just a blink of an eye. He has done it. We're still living it through, but he has already done it. He takes him back to the very beginning. Why? To show him two things. One, that God is love and God has a plan. And he doesn't tell him, he shows him. He didn't have to show him all these great things. He could have just said it, but he wanted Job to know down to the very cells, to the bottom of his stomach and the deepest recesses of his mind, who he was and what he was capable of. That all he is, has done, or will ever do is out of his vast love for us, that is evidenced through time and space in the very goodness and vastness and affection of creation itself. And if you don't see creation as affection, I want you to start looking at the sunset. I want you to start looking and listening to the birds that are singing right now. I want you to look at the grass that is growing and the leaves that are budding and the water when it's still and it reflects the sky. I want you to start touching the trees and realizing how vast and powerful they are, and yet they hold themselves up. I want you to look at the shore and see that he puts his hand before it and he controls that as well. Even when there's storms and it looks like things are out of control and the clouds are swirling and there's lightning striking, that he controls that as well. Creation itself shows us his goodness and his vastness and his greatness and his affection for us. Because if he loves the details, the minutia of those things, how much more the creation that is made in his image, that he created not just because he wanted to say, look what I can do, but because he wanted relationship with us. And that's how special we are to him. And then second, as I already alluded to, he's had a plan since the beginning. And from the beginning of your turmoil and your pain and your suffering, he already had a plan that has been played out in God's time. We're just walking through it. And if we can hold on to that, then it's going to get us through whatever situation we have in our lives. It has gotten me through situations that I thought it'd be easier if I didn't. It'd be easier if I weren't. But that's not true, because as soon as I look to God, I realize that he's in control, that he has already made a plan, that he's going to make good out of the chaos that I'm feeling in my life, and he's going to bless me, and we'll see that in Job's story, and he's going to bless others through it as well. God is challenging Job here then in his speeches, in his response, to focus on him, to find his comfort, his security, his confidence, and be reassured in his greatness and his character and his detailed thought and involvement in our lives. God has answered. God has already overcome. Can you hold on? Can you hold on to watch the end of the story play out in your life, as we'll see it play out in Job's life? So your reflection for today is this: God's reply to Job was nothing short of elaborate and majestic. How can nature itself remind you of God's greatness, his power, and his character? How can its beauty and detail reassure you in times of uncertainty? He wants you to look to him. He loves you so much.